A thorough understanding on the ground conditions of a site is a prerequisite to the success of a building construction project. The overall objective of a site investigation for foundation design is to determine the site constraints, geological profile and the properties of the various strata. The geological sequence can be established by sinking bore holes from which soil and rock samples are retrieved for identification and testing. In-site tests may also be carried out to determine the mass properties of the ground. These investigation methods may be supplemented by regional geological studies and geophysical tests where justified by the scale and importance of the project or the complexity of the ground conditions. Soil investigation involves the following steps. First, planning the details and sequence of operations. Second, collection of soil samples from the field. Third, conducting all field tests for determining the strength and compressibility characteristics of the soil. Fourth, study of groundwater level conditions and collection of water samples for chemical analysis. Fifth, geophysical exploration if necessary. Sixth, testing in the laboratory of all samples of soil, rock and water. Seventh, preparation of drawing and charts. Eighth, analysis of the results of the tests. Ninth, preparation of report. Methods of soil investigations. The normal method of soil investigations are inspection, test pits, probing, boring. Inspection, the first step in this connection is the inspection of the site and its vicinity to get a preliminary idea of the site conditions. This includes the study of the existing building in the neighborhood and if possible the type of their foundations. The cuts made in the nearby areas should also be looked into. The subject can be discussed with those persons who were associated in constructing buildings in the surrounding with regard to their experiences and difficulties encountered by them. Test pits. Test pits are dug by hand or by excavating machines. The size of the pit should be such that a person can easily enter the pit and have a visual inspection. Both disturbed and undisturbed soil samples are collected from the pit for detailed analysis. Probing. This will give a rough idea of the underlying soil. In this, a steel bar of 25 to 40 mm, about 1 inch to 1.5 inch in diameter, is driven into the ground until a hard stratum is met with. The bar is driven by a hammer. The bar is then drawn out and at intervals, and the soil sticking to the bar is examined to get an idea of the type of the soil. An experienced workman can assess the nature of the soil by observing the way the rod is penetrated into the soil. Boring. In this process, bore holes are made in the ground and the soil samples collected. Boring helps in obtaining first, extent of each strata of soil rock, second, nature of each stratum and the engineering properties of the soil, third, location of groundwater table, field and laboratory testing. Field tests, the commonly adopted field tests are standard penetration test, dynamic cone penetration test, static cone penetration test, plate load test, vane shear test and pressure meter test. Laboratory tests, a set of laboratory tests are required to be done to obtain the soil parameters for the design of foundation. These tests are shear strength, compressibility, permeability, chemical and mineralogical, composition and soil classification, subsurface investigations. Subsoil conditions are examined using test borings provided by soil engineers, geotechnicals, Number of borings and locations of borings depend on building type and site conditions. Typically, for uniform soil conditions, borings are spaced 100 to 150 feet apart for more detailed work, where soil footings are closely spaced and soil conditions are not even boring and spaced 50 feet apart. Larger open warehouse type spaces where fewer columns are present, long span required less boring samples. Soil report recommendation should be based on testing of materials obtained from on-site borings and to include: first, bearing capacity of soil; second, foundation design recommendations; third, paving design recommendations; fourth, compaction of soil; fifth, lateral strength, that is active, passive and coefficient of friction; sixth, permeability; seventh, frost depth. Surface investigations. Danger flags: high water table, presence of troubled soils, peat, soft clay, loose silt or fine water bearing sands, rock close to the surface require blasting for excavations, dumps or fills, evidence of slides or subsidence above ground indicators of soil conditions. Near buildings require shoring or earth and existing foundations. Rock outcropping indicate bedrock, good for bearing and frost resistance, bad for excavations. Water, like lake, indicate high water table, some waterproofing of foundation is required. Level terrain, easy site work, fair bearing but poor drainage. Gentle slopes, easy site work and excellent drainage. Convex terrain, ridges, dry solid place to build. Concave terrain like valley, wet soft place to build. Steep terrain, costly excavations, potential erosion and sliding soils. Foliage, some trees indicate moist soil, large trees indicate solid ground. The Unified Soil Classification System is based on identifying soils according to their textural and plasticity qualities and their grouping with respect to behavior. Soils are usually found in nature as mixtures with varying proportions of particles of different sizes. Each of these components contribute to the soil mixture. Soil is classified on the basis of: first, percentage of gravel, sand and fines; second, shapes of grain; third, plasticity and compressibility characteristics. Soil groups. Soils are grouped into three groups consisting of: first, coarse grained divided into gravelly soils G and sands and sandy soils S. Second, fine grained divided based on their plasticity properties L and H. Third, highly organic are not subdivided PT. Substrata are classified into 5 main groups: rock, non-cohesive soil gravel and sand, cohesive soil such as clay, peat and shifting sand, made ground or fill. An appropriate geological model of a site is an essential requirement for safe foundation design. The interpretation of borehole data, site mapping and other geological information should be carried out by an experienced geotechnical engineer or engineering geologist to establish a geological model that is suitable for engineering design. There are inherent uncertainties in any geological models, given that only a relatively small proportion of the ground can be investigated, sampled and tested. It is therefore important that all available information is considered in characterizing the ground profile and compiling a representative geological model for the site. General sites, the extent of a ground investigation is dependent on the complexity of the ground and to a certain degree the form of the proposed development and type of structures and the intended foundation types. Adequate investigation should be carried out, ensure no particular foundation options will be precluded due to a lack of information on ground conditions. In general, boreholes should be extended through unsuitable founding materials into competent ground beyond the zone of influence of the proposed foundations. It is good practice to sink sufficient boreholes to confirm the general geology of the site. Consideration should also be given to sinking boreholes immediately outside the loaded area of a development in order to improve the geological model. It is also important to continually review the borehole findings throughout the investigation stage to ensure adequate information has been obtained. For piles founded on rock, it is common practice to carry out pre-drilling prior to pile construction to confirm the design assumption and predetermine the founding level of the piles. Geophysical techniques are generally useful in helping to screen the site area for planning of the subsequent phases of investigation by drilling. Wherever appropriate geophysical methods may be used to augment boreholes. A range of surface, cross hole and down hole geophysical techniques are available. The design of foundations on or near rock slopes relies on a comprehensive study of the geology and a detailed mapping of exposed joint conditions. In some cases, the rock face cannot be assessed for detailed mapping for different reasons. For example, the rock face is outside the development boundary. Adequate drill holes or inclined drill holes may be necessary to determine the continuity and orientation of discontinuities. The ground investigation should include measurement of discontinuities from drill holes using impression packer tests or acoustic televiewer method. Good quality rock core samples should be obtained, and it may sometimes require the use of better sampling equipment such as triple tube core barrels and air forms. Sites underlain by marble. Given the possible extreme variability in karst morphology of the marble rock mass, the program of ground investigation should be flexible. For preliminary investigation, it is recommended that there should be a minimum of one borehole per 250 square meter, drilled at least 20 meters into sound marble rock, that is rock which has not been or is only slightly affected by dissolution. The depth of boreholes should correspond with the magnitude of the load to be applied by the structure. It is anticipated that boreholes on a grid of about 7 meters to 10 meters centers will be required to intercept specific karst features. Boreholes in other parts of the site should be sunk on a grid pattern or at points of concentration of piles to a depth of 20 meters into sound marble. Attention should be given to logging the location and size of cavities, the nature of the cavity walls, infilling materials and discontinuities. If the infill is cohesive in nature, good quality tube samples of cavity infill may be obtained using a triple tube sampler with preferably air forming as the flushing medium. Surface geophysical methods can produce useful results to identify the potential problematic areas. The cost of ground investigation can be reduced by targeting drilling over the problematic areas. The microgravity method works best in relatively flat ground and without any influence from high density objects in the surroundings. Borehole geophysical techniques including cross-hole, seismic shooting and electromagnetic wave logging have been found to give meaningful results. This technique is suitable when there is a good contrast in the dielectric permittivity between sound marble and water in cavities. It is not suitable in highly fractured marble or marble interbeds with other rocks such as meta-siltstone and meta-sandstone. A foundation is used to support a building or structure and transmits loads directly to the underlying soil or rock. It must satisfy two fundamental requirements. Firstly, it must provide an adequate factor of safety against failure of the supporting strata. Secondly, any resulting settlement, and in particular differential settlement, should not be detrimental or interfere with the function of the structure. The main purposes of a foundation are to distribute the load from the building over a large area, to load the substratum evenly so as to prevent unequal settlement, to take the structure sufficiently deep into the ground to prevent overturning. Before a foundation is decided, it is necessary to determine the characteristics of the soil at the site of construction. This is done by conducting soil investigations. Foundations can be split into two main types: shallow foundations and deep foundations. Shallow foundations are constructed relatively close to the ground level. Shallow foundations can only be used where the soil at that level is capable of adequately supporting the load. They are founded at a minimum depth to resist damage from frost and incohesive soils. For example, clays. The presence of nearby trees can significantly affect the depth of the foundation. Shallow foundations do not extend very far into the ground. More importantly, they transmit structural loads to near surface soils. Types of shallow foundations include spread footing foundation and mat foundation, which are typically used for residential structures or any structure with light loads. Spread footings are also known as footer or footing, are simply enlargements at the bottom of columns or walls that spread the applied structural loads over a sufficiently large soil area. Spread footings are by far the most common type of foundation because of their low cost and ease of construction. A mat foundation is essentially a very large spread footing that usually covers the entire footprint of the structure, such as the basement, in situ concrete, but some structure elements can alternatively be constructed in precast concrete, in part or whole, to improve speed of construction on site. They are often used to support structures at sites where subsurfaces materials are sufficiently strong. Design of shallow foundations should ensure that there is an adequate factor of safety against bearing failure of the ground, and that the settlements, including total and differential settlements, are limited to allowable values. Deep foundations extend to a depth greater than shallow foundations. More importantly, they transmit structural loads to soils that are not near surface soils. Type of deep foundations include caissons, drilled shafts and piles. Caissons are prefabricated boxes or cylinders that are sunk into the ground to a desired depth. Drilled shafts are constructed by drilling a slender cylindrical hole into the ground, inserting reinforcing steel and filling it with concrete. piles most commonly used for bridges are constructed by prefabricating slender members and driving or forcing them into the ground with powerful machines. The transfer of loads from deep foundations to the soil is different from that of shallow foundations. Shallow foundations primarily transfer the load to the soil via bearing pressure. Deep foundations transfer most of the load via friction along the length of the foundation, called skin friction. Additionally, force that remains at the bottom of the deep foundation is transferred to the soil by bearing pressure. To calculate the maximum allowable load for any type of foundation, engineers include a design factor of safety to help prevent sudden failures. A higher factor of safety is used for soils that are difficult to define and for which testing is limited. Steps in selection of foundation types. First, obtain the required information concerning the nature of the superstructure and the loads to be transmitted to the foundation. 2. Obtain the subsurface soil condition. 3. Explore the possibility of constructing any one of the types of foundation under the existing conditions by taking into account first the bearing capacity of the soil to carry the required load, and second, the adverse effects on the structure due to differential settlements. Eliminate in this way the unsuitable types. Continuation. Fourth, once one or two types of foundations are selected on the basis of preliminary studies, make more detailed studies. These studies may require more accurate determination of loads, subsurface conditions and footing sizes. It may also be necessary to make more refined estimates of settlement in order to predict the behavior of the structure. Fifth, estimate the cost of each of the promising types of foundation and choose the type that represents the most acceptable compromise between performance and cost. Based on above mentioned steps, some of the common found types are discussed below. Spread footings, used for most buildings where the loads are light and or there are strong shallow soils. At columns, there are single spot square pads where bearing walls have an elongation form. These are almost always reinforced. These footing deliver the load directly to the supporting soils. Area of spread footing is obtained by dividing the applied force by the soil's safe bearing capacity. F is equal to P divided by A. Generally suitable for low rise buildings, that is 1 to 4th storied, requires firm soil conditions that are capable of supporting the building on the area of the spread footings. When needed, footings at columns can be connected together with grade beams to provide more lateral stability in earthquakes. These are most widely used because they are most economical. Depth of footings should be below the topsoil and frost line on compacted fill or firm native soil. Spread footings should be above the water table. Concrete spread footings are at least as thick as the width of the stem. As the width of the building increases in relation to the bearing capacity or depth of good bearing soil, the footing needs to expand in size or different systems need to be used, drilled piers or caissons. For expansive soils with low to medium loads or high loads with rock not too far down, drilled caissons, piers and grade beams can be used. The caissons might be straight or belled out at bottom to spread the load. The grade beam is designed to span across the piers and transfer the loads over to the column foundation. Caissons deliver the loads to soil of stronger capacity which is located not too far down. Piles. Piles are used for expansive soils or soils that are compressive with heavy loads where deep soils cannot take the building load and where soil of better capacity if found deep below. There are two types of piles. First, friction piles used where there is no reasonable bearing stratum and they rely on resistance from skin of pile against the soil. Second, end bearing, which transfer directly to soil of good bearing capacity. The bearing capacity of the piles depends on the structural strength of the pile itself or the strength of the soil, whichever is less. Piles can be wood, steel, reinforced concrete or cast in place concrete piles. Cast in place piles are composed of hole drilled in earth and then filled with concrete. It is used for light loads or soft ground and where drilling will not cause collapse. Mat foundations, reinforced concrete raft or mats can be used for small light load buildings on very weak or expensive soils such as clays. They are often post tensioned concrete. They allow the building to float on or in the soil like a raft and used for buildings that are 10-20 stories tall where it provides resistance against overturning. Where soil requires such a large bearing area and the footing might be spread to the extent that it becomes more economical to pour one large slab thick, more economical, less forms. In lieu of driving piles, because can be less expensive and less obstructive, that is less impact on surrounding areas. Over expansive clays, silts to let foundation settle without great differences, mat is to be considered when total footprint area of spread footings is more than say 50% of building footprint. Mat can also be an option to reduce total and differential settlement, to bridge areas of weak subgrade. A thorough investigation and assessment of ground conditions and stability is essential to determine whether a site is suitable for building or where the best place may be to locate a building and the type and size of foundations that will be required. Soil texture is an important physical property and a major factor to consider when evaluating the suitability of a lot as a building site. The importance of a properly planned and executed ground investigation cannot be overemphasized. The information obtained from the investigation will allow an appropriate geological model to be constructed. This determines the selection of the optimum foundation system for the proposed structure.